Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I don't know where you're watching from, but today I am absolutely delighted to bring into this studio for the first time a panel. A panel that I'm in awe of what they have done, what they've accomplished. I saw a statistic somewhere that made my heart shake that an average 13 to 18-year-old spends about 7.5 hours a day watching a screen, distracted from focusing from something that is important. That got me really nervous because we have a little one that's just barely 10 months old. And I don't know if I can. I'm shaking because is that the world in which we're going to live? Is that the world in which we're going to raise this young one? Because I don't have the answers, I thought, who can I lean on? I want to lean on my sister, Madame Maggie Abam de Paz, based in New York. I want to lean on the wisdom of D.R. Rawson in Henderson, Nevada. I want to lean on Reverend Martin Osai, based in Dallas, Texas, who is an educator, is a reverend, is a man of God. And just quick insight there, D.R. used to be a man of God and also a serial entrepreneur.
Oh, I take
And
it
I
into that.
want to ask you this question directly. Is it possible to raise successful children, high achievers, in a world that is full of distractions?
Well, who do you want to talk first?
Let's have the honor of having Sister Maggie go first. Is it possible to raise
Oh,
high
thank you so
achievers in a
much.
world
Thank you
in a
so
world
much.
that is full of distractions?
You have to qualify high achievers. What do you mean by high achievers? Number one, the first thing you want to do is raise kids that are well rounded, that are very confident, and kids that are kind, kids that are respectful. And I believe that once you've done that, you've raised a well rounded and a high achiever in your house. I can always go back to, people laugh at me when I say, don't ask me about my kids because I turn into Michelle Obama and I can rave about them all day. It wasn't always easy. So when I had my oldest, who's 26 now, she's going to kill me for revealing her age, but I love you just the same. When I had her, um, it was the most beautiful thing ever. And then 8 months later, I found out I was pregnant with the second one. So I'm like, huh, what am I supposed to do? I'm working. And my husband and I looked at each other. He's like, okay, you're going to stay home and I'm going to really step up my game. And so that we can raise these kids, and give them the best that we can, even with the little that we have. So in raising my daughter, it was a whole community. So it was not just me alone. And it's very important to surround yourself with people that share your value. And that's how you raise high achieving kids. So high achievers, it's not just book achieving. That's not
Mhm.
all. I believe that a well-rounded child will do well in school, will do
Mhm.
well in their community, will do well at their church, will do well with their family, and then that they can take those aspiration further
Mhm.
into the world that we live in today. So in doing so, we just expose her to a lot of different things. We Saturdays we were never home. We're either at even going to a pizza store was an educational moment.
Mhm.
Going to the botanic garden went from the time she was 3 years old. I had a lot of family members criticize me, oh, this is you putting too much on this child. But in reality, she didn't want to be home. My kids, they like to be outside. And we read a lot to them, and exposed them to from even from when they were still in my tummy. Their dad used to read to them. And when they came
Mhm.
out, we continued. And by 4, they were picking up words. And by 6, when I had my other kids, the oldest ones chime in to help their sisters. So they became follow
Mhm.
the leader. So I believe that once you've started on the right path, the other ones, once you've ingrained in them the values, the ones behind follow through. And that
Mhm.
is how that success continues. So it doesn't get stuck in just one child. And then
Mhm.
surrounding them with the same people that share your values, teaching them about God. It was very important to me. They need to belong to
Mm,
something. Yeah, exposing them to music, exposing them to different facets, not
mm,
just the class education. You don't, education doesn't end in the classroom. That is what I
yes.
used to tell my friends who will ask me, how did you do? I said, it continues at home. The
Mm,
teachers cannot educate you, they can't do everything for you. They
mm,
set the foundation, yes, they give them the resources, but then you have to take that and augment it when you come home. And it could
mm,
just be as simple as, we're cooking dinner. I'll have them measure the flour. We're baking cake. They'll make a lot of mess, but it's okay because that's how kids learn. You have to
mm,
let them explore, with guidance. So for
mm,
me, raising high achievers, it's not just high achievers. I mean, thank God they're all very brilliant girls, they're very smart, but that's just not all they have. They are
mm,
well rounded because, in addition to being very great at what they do and have good jobs now, thank God, they're just very kind, very open minded,
mm,
and, just hoping to leave their footprints on this planet.
mm. Wow. That is very deep. And I'm very happy that you open up that circle much broader than just education because I've lived in some communities that tend to pigeonhole children. But I want to go over to DR to chime in on, is it possible to raise high achievers in a very, very distracted world? And then we can go over to Reverend. I know Reverend is a little bit out of camera, but it's okay. We understand for safety reasons. You may have to be one angle out of camera. But first, let's hear from DR.
That's
Well, as Maggie pointed out, there's a lot of facets to being high achievers. And high achievers at what? You could be literally a high achiever spiritually and a low achiever physically. You
Amen.
could be a high achiever in some unique aspect. I have a granddaughter who, when she was between the ages of just born and three, people thought she was stupid, behind, not going to be much of anything. Today, she programs for video games
Hmm,
uh, at the ripe old age of 18.
Hmm.
She has already completed 2 years of college at age 18.
Can relate to that.
Brilliant soul, and very quiet, also autistic, and she has Asperger's.
Hmm.
hmm,
There was a reason why she was that way. And so, if it wasn't for a patient family who brought her out of that shell, they could have just pushed her along in an environment that wouldn't have allowed her to bloom.
hmm,
And I think that's part of it. I think it's as much a fault of the parents not understanding how to let their children bloom.
hmm,
Yes.
One of the things I was most amazed at with six children is that literally every one of them is different. Every one of them has a different career field. Every one
Absolutely.
of them has different viewpoints, which really surprised me. And every one of them, if you look at a commonality, they are all extremely articulate.
Hmm.
Now, that I owe to my wife, who passed. We were married for 26 years. And to my current wife and myself, we're all fairly articulate. And these children were never talked to like little kids, they were talked to like adults. And so that's the way we raise the kids. Now, in terms of screen time, you're talking to someone who, for better or for worse, I'm a pioneer in technology, the internet, and computers, and a whole bunch of stuff. And so, do I think technology is important? Yeah, I do. But I think that it has to be monitored. I think it has to be uh, metered just like anything else you do in life. For example, I had a child who, at 4 years old, she not only walked and talked, she figure skated on roller skates, and she has a work ethic that is continues to this day. Her whole idea was, Dad, I have things to do. So if my requirements are to make my bed, clean my room, dump my trash, and then I can go play, great. Will you come in and check as soon as I'm done? Because I don't have any time to waste. And literally, she would get out of bed and roll her sheets up like this so that she could get out of there as quickly as. And the other kids are still complaining at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Why do I have to clean my room? She was already gone. She'd been out playing for most of the day. So she was well rounded in the gift of working and working hard and knowing she has a level of focus that to this day she's a partner in an accountancy firm. And prior to that, she was a bookkeeper for her husband's rather large plumbing firm in Central California. So she has a different set of skills. Is she well rounded in other areas? No, I can't say that she's well rounded in a lot of things. So when we say well rounded and high achievers, she's an extremely high achiever in the things that she's either gifted in or things that she wants to do that she's focused on, has a passion for. By the way, she is also slightly autistic, which we didn't find out until she was almost 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's kind of interesting. I have another son who completed the fifth grade, has formal education, and that's it. And he is a hands on kid. He's bright, brilliant. He leads a team of roughly 120 some odd people in the oil business. He did follow me into the oil business. He went to work for one of my partners when I had an oil company. And so he's extremely bright that way. You show him something, and he will 9 times out of 10 enhance whatever you've shown him and something that's better. Does he read books? Nope, doesn't read books. That's not his forte. He doesn't read, and he didn't like to go to school because he thought the other kids were idiots. And his mother fell right into that and said, "Well, you don't have to go to school then." So there it was. So there's a kid. Is he well rounded? Mm, I can't say he's well rounded, but I can say he's a high achiever. He's absolutely a high achiever. If you look at the scale of income, he's a very high achiever. So there you go. I have another child who, I mean, I could go through this and I won't go through all of them, but I
Yep.
can tell you that all the kids that I have, I only have one who's maybe not yet a high achiever. She's kind of a late bloomer, but she has her own business that's nationwide.
Mhm.
She's a notary and she does very well for herself. So, is she well rounded? In the areas that she wants to be, she is.
Mm.
I want to tell you a story, just a brief story, if I can, about being well rounded and about raising kids. I've been asked as I travel around the world. I've been asked by people, well, who are the toughest negotiators? Who's really tough to deal with, and who are the people that are the smartest that you deal with, and all these kinds of interesting questions. One of the things that I wanted to know about as a father is who are the ones that raise the brightest kids.
Uh,
Well, it so happens that I have a brother from another mother who's a rabbi. And I've been very close to Jewish kids all my life. My high school was 55% Jewish kids. So, what I found out at a very early age is that in the Jewish community, when you come home at night, everybody eats at the table. Right away, there's something that kids aren't doing today. Kids are eating someplace, parents are eating another place. They kind of eat together and they're right in front of their screens and doing whatever they're doing. In the Jewish home, no, you sit at the table and either the mother or the father or both raise questions. Let me ask you, George, what do you think of the term honesty? What does that mean to you? And that child has to repeat that. That child has to have an opinion on that. And it may be right or wrong, but they keep working on that. It kind of works around the table. The father or the mother, whoever threw out that question, has the right answer because of their experience and time on the planet. So they work a child to that point where the child understands the answer and now buys off on the answer, knows that what the parent believes is the truth. As a result, through questions and answers, the kid begins to achieve at a higher level than a lot of kids. That's why the greatest number of scientists, doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers are Jewish. And it's kind of that simple. So if you look at these kids that come from that have these same backgrounds, who are also doctors, attorneys, lawyers, they were raised in homes where questions were important. They were raised in homes where the freedom to ask a question and to discuss a question was important. And I think that single trait raises better children than anything, is the freedom for a child to discuss issues at home.
Hmm. That's very interesting view, and it probably points to something that Malcolm Gladwell had written about called concerted cultivation. But I know we would like to hear from the Reverend chime in on that. But if I could piggyback on what you just shared, both of you just shared, you have put an emphasis on rounded, well rounded, not just one area. Because if we focus on only one area, then the child might walk away thinking, I am not good enough.
Mm,
And there's been
Mhm.
scientific literature that points to the fact that there are multiple intelligences. There's no reason to judge one child or every child only based on IQ. That
right.
is so that is so small. It's so limited in scale. Some people are good with physical intelligence. Some people are good with uh, 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 linguistic intelligence. Some are good in uh, geospatial intelligence. So there's so many intelligences. Big takeaway for me, based on what both of you have said, is it is not good enough to only look at it from one angle. Reverend, if you are able to chime in, this would be a good time. Can we raise high achievers in a very distracted world? Is that possible, or is that not even possible?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah, so the two words that come to mind is expectations and involvement.
Mhm.
As parents, I think to raise achieving children, we must be involved right from the beginning,
Mm.
especially in their educational journey.
Mhm.
When we are involved and we know what is happening at school, then we know how to support the children at home.
Mm.
I know from my own personal example, um, my oldest child was gifted and talented. And at the time, we did not know. And when he would go to school, they would call my wife to come and pick him up because he was a distraction and he was bothering other children.
Mm.
Come to find out, he was bored in class. Whatever
Mhm.
they were working on was a little bit too low for him. Therefore, he finished so quickly and he started, bothering his friends. When we noticed that, we decided to move him out of the school where he was into another school. And immediately he got there, they tested him and he was gifted and talented. And he moved into the gifted and talented program. But because we as parents made that decision and made that move for him, he thrived right from that point on up until
Mm.
now that he is a junior at LSU.
Hmm.
So involvement in their education is critical. He was the first of the five, and all of them, because of his experience as young parents at the time, we made sure that we were heavily involved in the rest of the children's education, career, and movement. I was very particular in which schools they went to because the first school he went to did not get him, did not pay attention to his giftings and abilities, and would have very quickly labeled him special ed if we did not intervene and move him to the right environment. So putting our children in the right schools is critical if they are going to achieve. We want them in an environment that thrives, an environment that brings out the best in them. So expectation along those lines, as parental involvement is key. But then what expectations do we also develop for the children? What do I expect of you at school? At one point when they were in grade school, I would give, for every A that you made, you got $5. Now, that was a way to motivate them to work hard in class. And they did. They looked forward to quickly showing me that report card so they can, take advantage of the money that I promised. As little as that was, it was motivational. But they know the expectation is that they do well. I set on all of their school management systems that when any of my children's grade fell below 70, I need to know about it. So I was in a school system that allowed that, and I will get an alert anytime a grade fell below 70. And we had to have conversation about it, talk about what needs to be done, and make sure that homework was being done. And if there are any papers that need to be turned in, those papers are turned in on time. So today, Emeka, who is the oldest, is a junior. He has joined the Army National Guard, is in college and doing very well, pursuing a degree in sports administration and also acting as a minor, because his passion is acting. Then the second one is Sinam, went to one of these collegiate programs that now is springing up all over the country, particularly in Dallas. We have a lot of them where they call it early college, and they graduate from high school with 2 years of college done. This summer, Isinam should have been home enjoying summer, but by her own decision, decided to take 2 more classes in the summer. She wants to become a nurse. She went to UT Arlington with a 2-year associate degree. And in her first year, which is kind of incoming end of sophomore, junior, and she decided to spend her summer to take 2 classes that she felt were going to be difficult for her. She took them with other classes in the school year. And she made that decision herself. So again, because of that parental involvement, because of that expectation of what we expect in this home, that became their work ethic. And even in spite of all of this, she's working and making her own money and bought her first car when she went to college. The other 2 boys, the third born, who is into music, her passion is singing, and she's in the jazz genre. Again, I looked for a high school that focuses on performing arts and the visual arts, and that is where we put her. And she's thriving in that area. This summer, she actually went to Sweden to sing at Ethno World Youth Conference or Youth Festival. So the 2 words that I said, parental involvement, expectation, those are 2 things that has helped us. Plus, as family, we travel every opportunity we get. I know my sister talked about traveling. Traveling is the best education we can give our children. Every summer, every spring break, we map out where we are going. Last spring break, we drove all the way to Virginia, came back through Maryland and Washington, D.C., back to Dallas. Another summer, we went all the way through from Dallas, New Mexico to Arizona, Grand Canyon, Petrified Woodford. We look for the things that we can do along the way. And we do that every summer, every spring break, we decide where are we going. And even now that they are in college, we all plan and come together and still do these travels. We call them road trips. Now my son can drive too, so it's not just me and my wife, Betty. He is able to drive. So Virginia trip was easy on me because 3 of us did the driving. But I want to say that as we expose them to different things and find out what their true passions are, as African parents, I don't know if you know this, but we are very particular about education. And many times we can overdo it in the area of you have to be this and you have to be that. You have to be a
Yeah,
lawyer,
that
you have
was
to
that
be a
was gonna
doctor, you have
that
to
was
be an
gonna be my
engineer.
question.
Hey, every African home you will hear that.
That was
But
gonna
I
be my
try
question.
to not be that parent. I
Mm,
always look for what are they passionate about, and then
mhm,
I encourage them. At one point, all of them wanted to play golf, so I signed them up in, golf, and they played golf for a while. When that passion waned, they wanted to play lacrosse. We went into lacrosse. So I look for what they are interested in at the different stages of their lives, and I supported them, paid for it if it needs to be paid for, and provided the resources so they are well-rounded in that sense and well
mm,
exposed. Academically, they are doing well, but also they have traveled widely even up to today. Some of them were very young when we went to the Grand Canyon. But they'll say, Daddy, do you remember when we got on that train and they came and snatched purses from everybody and they were reenacting the train heist?
mm,
So
mm.
parental involvement, expectations that you set for the children, and also exposure, exposing them to the things that they are interested in, and don't get frustrated when they are interested in something and that interest wanes away. They have learned something by the time that they were involved in that that passion. So finding out what the kids are passionate about and navigating them and helping them to through their educational journey.
Mm. That is very interesting. So what I'm hearing is, it takes a village. Whether it is
It
the
does.
Jewish approach, it takes a village to raise a child. It's not just the mom and the dad. It could also be other extended family members, from what DR mentioned. But let me ask you this. You mentioned that you don't particularly insist on what career choices they make. So I want to hear from Sister Maggie and from DR. Do you try to guide them or shape them or insist, like the Asian version, they call it tiger mothers, insist on what their children should study so that they should make a living in life? DR, you could go, or maybe Sister Maggie can go.
Oh, you can go first, there. It's fine. I'll go.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I as you already know, Gideon, I have a little different upbringing. I was a homeless kid. My first schooling was, well, the kids were all Hispanic. I was not. My sister was not. Blonde haired, blue eyed, all Hispanics. My middle school, they were all African American. I'm obviously not. My high school was mostly Jewish and Hispanic. So I've been raised in multicultural environments. I look for inclusiveness in everything that I do because of that and because of the travel that I've spent. You get to know the people no matter where they come from, whether it's some of the darkest parts of Africa, some of the middle parts of India that where people never go, or you want to be along a trail alongside the road in Indonesia, in some place that the last time they saw a white person was they never remembered seeing one. Yeah, all those different places. I've been there. And so for my kids, I said to them this. Number one, my parents died when they were extremely young, so I didn't have the benefit of parents guiding me. I had a grandfather who kind of guided me. I told my children this. I worked my way through school while running businesses. I went to night school, so I'm not paying for your education. I will help you save for your education, and then you get your education. That's the way you're going to get it. Or you can get, as I would have had if I hadn't gone to Vietnam. I had scholarship to Rutgers and Claremont Men's and San Jose State playing football. So you could do it that way. You could do any number of things, but if you're looking for me as the meal ticket, it's not going to happen. I want you to work for it. So my children understood at a very early age that they were going to have to work for literally everything they got. And I think that's an important consideration. I also think that when we're talking about how to raise high achievers, I think involvement, as you pointed out, Reverend, is absolutely critical. These making that transition between cell phone and
Yeah,
laptop.
a laptop, I think so.
As he pointed out, involvement is absolutely key. And as we go forward, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, even more so than the kids spending so much time on the screen.
Mm,
Parents do not feel an obligation to be involved in their children's education and involved in their children's life as we were when we were young parents.
mm,
You're still a young parent, so you've got an opportunity, Gideon. But the point is that they just don't get involved for a couple of reasons. Number one, most families, the husband and the wife work, so
mhm,
that limits the amount of time that they have. Number two, they weren't taught that. They weren't taught that that was critical, and so that creates a problem right there. But that's, I think, the pinch point, and I think that's where we need to teach. If we're
mm,
going to teach children how to create high achievers, is to first be intimately involved in the children's lives.
Mhm.
mm. Fantastic. Okay, Sister Maggie,
Mm.
what do you think about that?
Yeah, so to piggyback on what DR and the Rev has said, they both of them are right on point. So for us, especially growing up in an African household, we were truly blessed to have a father who was very progressive. My dad's thing is, first in our house, God is number one. You have to give your life to God and then, serve. So my dad raised us to be very open minded. He raised us, and the one thing he always stressed, nothing is too small to be done right.
Mm,
Whatever you want to do, make sure you put your mind into it and your all and give it the best. Don't just touch things and leave it. It's okay to try things, but don't just go for the fun of just doing something. And if your passion is you want to be a musician, put all your effort into becoming the best musician. If you want to be a doctor, put your effort into being the best doctor that you can be. Being the best doctor doesn't mean that you're going to, get an award, but just being good in your trade so you can help people.
mm,
And so having that upbringing, we were just really, really blessed because a lot of African parents, they're not like that. I have
yes.
a friend whom she's not even African, she's Jewish. And the father was adamant, the parents, you have to be a lawyer. You have to be a lawyer. She's a very high achieving girl. She went to law school, finished top in her class. When she graduated, you know what she's doing now? She's working at a deli because that is not what she wanted to do. She told me, and her parents, they finally they gave up on her. With all this education, finally she decided to go back and be a school teacher. While she was in law school, she was doing that for her parents, and they paid every dime of her education was paid. And when she recounted this story, and I was sitting back thinking, they're not any different from some other parents that I've heard. So for our kids, we horn the interests that they want to. I have four daughters, and I tell people that I speak four different languages, literally, because
Mm,
they're four different and unique girls, you know. And what I see their passion in certain things, I sort of kind of helped horn that passion, and that has turned into a career for all of
mhm,
them, you know.
mm,
And like I'll start with her. My husband is a systems integrator, and he used to write codes for a lot of um, companies. So the kids, all of them, they pick up that interest in computers. But my third in particular, from when she was in fifth grade, everybody called on Walmart to set up things. And so I saw that in her. Things can. If Wilma is not home, I can watch TV because she knows how to maneuver everything. So when she was time for to go to school, but she also really liked to go into the music industry and film, and she took a lot of film studies in high school. And while that was great, and I knew that there were other kids in her class that were very high achievers in film and competitive. They had portfolios. And I'm looking at Wilma, I'm like, you have a tech background. You can use that to your advantage in pursuing your film. So why don't you get a degree in computer science and minor in film? So you still enjoy the best of both worlds. But oh, mommy, I don't want to code. I'm like, no, you don't have to code. The misconception about tech is that you have to be coding. I said it's a very broad field. You have uncles, one that works for Boeing. He can, one that works, he's a system integrator. So she started talking to them. And then finally she realized what mommy was saying. So she majored in computer science and minored in film. Guess where she's working at? She's working for an aerospace company as a systems engineer, but doing project management for them, creating intranets, things that they did not have. So now she's realizing that I really didn't have to code. And then I have another daughter who is, they all communicate really well. She wants to go to law school. And so she decided, she started college. She hated the school, quit, started working as a paralegal with no background in that. So by working with lawyers, she was able to hone that skill. And then, again, like the community, people saw the passion in her, and then they pushed her. But all I'm saying, I don't want to go through all of them, but what I'm saying is that for me, for my children, we just expose them to lots of different things. I had one who was going to school. She got a full scholarship to go to medical school, but now she is a manager and as in the data analytics at Blackstone. That's what she's doing. So and then so you never know where they start with one thing and they go to someone else. And I'm a big proponent. I always tell them, whatever your passion is, make sure you focus and do it well. And I'll support you. And whatever you decide to do, you're going to succeed. And we also need to empower them, let them know that it's not going to be easy. You have to work hard. You cannot just sit and have it come to you. It doesn't work like that. You have to work hard at it. And going back to what DR said, they all have different skills, and we have to accept that one, my oldest is very high achieve. She's highly competitive. She can't help herself. That's just that's just her nature, you know. But I'm like, then I always try to tell her, you just need to calm down. But that's her nature. But then I tell her sisters, you don't have to be like her. That's just how she thinks. That's how she does things. And we all don't have to earn $1 million. It's fine. Whatever you do, have the passion about it and always work, do your best, and you will succeed. If you would, there's nothing on this planet that is too small to be done well. If you put your passion in it, you do it. That's how I raise my kids, and that's
I
and
love the fact that you began that way and ended that way. That's right. I think sometimes we see these grandiose things and we look at something as broad, even as, well, to be a super achiever. How do you do that?
right.
Well, it starts with the smallest of things.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
It doesn't begin with some
Absolutely.
broad stroke. Oh my gosh, I'm going to just do this. No, it begins with
Right.
this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Goes from
Absolutely.
there.
Let the kids be. They all can be lawyers. They all can be on Wall Street.
Yes.
Let them be. And when you raise them, it's not just you have to think about their health is wealth, you know? And then you
Mhm.
have to also think around. I always tell my kids, listen, when you get to be my age, you understand why friendships are very important. Relationships that you create along the way are important. They are the people that will drive you when we are not here. You might not see it now, but it's real. So it's not just school. Remember your relationships. Remember the people that were behind you, even your teachers.
Mhm.
Remember those people and try to stay in touch. I mean, not but just stay in touch and keep your friends and always look back and
Well,
see where you come
let
from.
me share one other little point with you. You know, my company that you were so kind enough to mention, tinytales.press, we have a saying, and the saying is this: stories create moments
Mm,
that create memories.
Mhm.
And when you're talking about, well, what do you have left? I'm considerably older than any of you, and I'm 77, and memories are what I have. and I can use those memories to share with others like
Mm-hmm.
yourselves, so that you now experience some of what I experienced. But more importantly, as we create memories with our children, they have something to draw on,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm.
memory that you created with them. That creates strength in them, and it allows them to fan out. It
Mm.
gives them the security to fan out and to know that they have this. That's where they come from.
Amen.
That's absolutely huge. You talk about African values. Unfortunately, I won't say that I wasn't raised with any values, because my grandfather was a Mason and was a devout Christian, and he taught me a lot of principles and values that are still important to me today. And I'm also a Mason, and I'm also a devout Christian. You mentioned earlier
That's
that
good.
I'm no longer a minister. What is it you said? Anyway, as though I don't have any religion anymore. That's not true.
It doesn't matter.
Anyway,
It's
the
all
point
the
is,
longest journey. It's a journey from here to
I
here.
have all those on to help others achieve, and we have a responsibility as uh, older people within society to help give those to the younger people, so that they know that they can achieve, that they can go forward, that there is a way forward. So often people feel trapped. There's not. I don't understand, how do I go forward? There's always a way forward, and older people like myself have a responsibility to show younger people how you can go forward.
Mhm.
I think that's part of what uh, creates high achievers, is that if we could just teach our children to always look for the opportunity,
Mhm.
look for opportunity, and not just settle back and say, well, it's not going to happen. I just, it's not in the cards. It's not going to
Can
work.
I can I just say one thing? One
Yes.
thing that I learned from a friend, and I'll shut up. And then one thing that I learned
That's
from a
okay.
friend,
I
she
don't think
taught me
anybody
that,
wants to shut up.
my my kids, I never tell my kids that you can't fail. It's okay to fail. It's okay
Mm.
to try. It's okay to try
Yeah,
and fail, but it's never okay to give up.
that's right.
You have
Mm.
no right to give up. But
Yeah,
I rather you fail 20 times and pick up yourself again from your bootstrap,
yeah,
pull yourself up, dust
yeah,
it off, but you cannot give up.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, see,
And
This.
that's where you can go back. You talk about African values. That's where you can go back and say, look at your roots, look at where you came from, look at what we've taught you. You
Mm.
have no right to just sit there and give up. You know that we've come forward. Look how your family, look how the genealogy of these people have gone forward and gone
Mm.
forward. So don't ever give up. You have that now, generations of people who have not given up,
yeah.
and look where they've come. Look
And
Mm.
how
lead by example. You gotta lead by
yeah,
example, not
Yep.
just talk.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to lead by example.
that goes towards raising high achievers as much as anything. If a child can look around and see the parents are living the very example of what they're trying to do, be high achievers, they can
Mm.
look at grandparents, they can look at aunts and uncles and say, "Oh, look, they went from this to
It
this."
is. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting to watch that happen, and
Mm.
we've had, certainly in our family, we've had the examples of that. One of the reasons that I wanted to write one of the books that I wrote, called Unlikely, was the fact that I came from being homeless to where I am today. Well, not everybody who's homeless sees themselves as ever having opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
just don't. And that's
Yes.
not true. That's absolutely not true. When I was a younger man, I used to spend a lot of time speaking in inner city, because they knew that I was raised when I was in middle school within the African American community. So they knew that I knew a little more than average about that. And I would stand up in front of these people and talk. And the first thing they would do, the hecklers would say, "Oh, you rich white," and then you can figure out what they said after that. But I would say to them, "Can we talk?" And when we start talking about background, we start talking about where you come from, then these kids who would do anything to just make an excuse for any reason realize now they can't make an excuse,
Mm, mm.
right?
Okay. Let
So
me.
with our own children, if we've got that solid base, if we've got that progression forward, the kids have no excuse.
Hmm.
Why can't you go forward? Aunt went forward, uncle went forward, grandfather went forward, I went forward, father went forward. We all kept going forward, and you can too.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Wow. There is so much to unpack in these conversations. I know we've done a wrong booking for just an hour. So I want to just ask a last question, knowing that with your uh, with your indulgence, we'll have to reconvene some other time. But I want to ask a question where we started, and I start now with Reverend Martin Osai. So the digital technologies that are everywhere,
Yeah.
do you think that they are a blessing or they're a curse to our children? Keep it as short as possible so we can end. And some people have to proceed to other activities. And then maybe if we can reconvene some other time, they will continue with the other topics because I have like 7 other topics that we didn't get to today.
Somebody's an overachiever. Somebody came
Yeah.
well prepared.
But digital technology is come to stay. And whether we see it as a blessing or a curse depends on how you look at it.
Mhm.
Can we leverage artificial intelligence? Can we leverage technological advancement for our good? The answer is yes. Can we also use them for things that are not so good? The answer is yes. So the wisdom between determining how to leverage these technological advances is the key. We
Mm,
live in a time and day today that STEM careers are the way of the future. That is where a lot of the jobs are. It used to be when you think about science or STEM, you think of maybe somebody in the basement, somewhere in a laboratory, in a lab coat, but that has changed. Where now STEM careers permeate into almost every facet of life, from healthcare to hospitality to education to every aspect, of our lives. So I think the key there is that it can be a curse if you focus on it the wrong way. But if we look at it as a way to leverage and be able to do things faster and quicker, and how can we, in our careers or in our jobs or where we are directing our young people, how can they leverage that for their best benefit? I think that
mm.
would be the focus that we should have. Because if
Okay.
we say it's a curse and then we'll just close our mind to it, but that's how everybody's going to bypass us. So we need to find how we leverage it for our own
Mm.
benefit.
Wow, I love that. So the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Okay, what do you think about that, Rev? And then finally, Sister Maggie.
DR. Mhm.
Oh, DR, sorry, DR, please.
Said Rev. I'm not a Reverend anymore.
Not anymore.
I have two examples. Number one is that in my day, in younger day, people would distract themselves with crossword puzzles. They would distract themselves with playing cards. They would distract themselves with doing a number of things. My grandchildren come up to me, and obviously I'm older than they are. They come up and they happen to notice that I'm playing a game on my computer, which is a brain teaser. And they say, well, you're watching the screen. You're doing that. Yeah, I am, because I'm taking a break from something else, and I need to break and I need to challenge myself a little bit. Oh, well, that makes sense. The other experience is I have two twin grandsons that are just super smart, super challenging, and we got off on the idea of the cost of an McDonnell Douglas 800 series aircraft versus a military plane used for war, and what that cost is. And one of my grandsons is doing this. He's looking up as fast as we can talk, and he says, "No, that costs 140 million." And the one in the back seat who's not using the computer says, "Well, how does that compare with so and so?" He's looking that up and he goes, "Well, that's only so and so." Well, then if you divide that into what the total is, and and there's a case of where they've got their nose in this thing. Well, what are they doing with it? They're educating themselves.
Yes.
So again, it goes right back to parental direction.
Mm-hmm.
You want to spend time in the computer, you want to spend time always looking at that screen, great. But what's the end result? What are you going to get out of it?
Mm, very
Excellent.
interesting.
Excellent.
Okay, Sister Maggie.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what both DR and the Rev has said. You know, digital technology is a very important aspect of our life. It's a very vital part of our everyday life. Everything we do, you need some kind of technology. You have Siri, you have Google, you have Alexa. You know, it has, as much as we want to complain about it, it has enhanced our lives and actually have
Mm,
saved lives. Right
mm,
now, you can be at work and somebody can ring your doorbell and you're like, oh, hey, you open the door for that person. I
mhm.
always tease my younger brother and I told him that the day I see Alexa, I'm going to beat her up because Alexa, I was sleeping. I'm like, I was sleeping very peacefully. And all of a sudden, Alexa is like, it's 5 a.m. now and you have to get up. Like, seriously? Yeah, Alexa woke me up and told me it's 5 a.m. I have to get up because we have to get ready for my nephew's graduation. We laughed at it and we joked. But when I when I go to think of it in the old days where you have to put remember those clocks that you have to
Yep,
set and it
yep.
rings. And sometimes you if you do it the wrong way, it doesn't work. So I think that like everybody has rightfully said, it's a very vital part of our life because it helps us in everyday operations. It helps us in making our lives more efficient and effective. And the problem is misuse of it
Mm,
and
mm,
without control. It goes back to parental control, like you said.
Yeah.
That is when you start thinking digital technology is not good. It's a very important. We have to evolve. We cannot
yeah.
stay in the Stone Age. So as we evolve, we also have to evolve with time and what the digital world is presenting to us. So I think it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it has to be used well.
Yep. Can I just add one more thing, please?
Yes,
Yeah,
please. Yes,
please go
absolutely.
for it.
What you folks may not know is that I'm one of the co-authors of a book called Artificial Intelligence versus Human Intelligence.
Mm,
We spent a lot of time dealing with this, and I predicted in January of this year that artificial intelligence would be top of mind this year. And it pretty much is. Everywhere you look, people are talking about artificial intelligence and whether or not it's going to be good, bad, or indifferent. It's not unlike the conversation that took place when the first touchpad came out and people said, oh, they're going to carry that around with them all the time? You're going to have that all the time? Well, artificial intelligence is with us all the time. And it, as you say, can be used for ill or it can be used for positive. And it's a question of how the individual uses it, not unlike the screen that's in front of them. How are they using it? For
Mm,
positive or for negative? Are
mhm,
they, are they understanding what they have in front of them and what's possible?
mhm.
mm. Thank you so much, DR in Henderson, Reverend Osai in Dallas, Sister Maggie in upstate New York. You all have just given me so much encouragement that panels are the way forward because the amount of wisdom that I believe we have co-created in 45 minutes to 1 hour is enormous. I have learned that you cannot raise a child in isolation. It takes a village.
Yeah.
Whether it's in Jewish culture, in African culture, in Western culture, it takes a village. It's
Yes.
important to have high expectations for our children, but at the same time, temper that by observing what are their strengths, what are their likes, what are their fortes, and encourage them along that lane. Because when you do that, they will bloom. I've
Yes.
also learned that digital technologies are here to stay. It's not all a curse, it's not all a blessing. It's a question of how do you harness it? How does a parent involve themselves to guide the child to know how to use these technologies in a way that is suitable? I know there's still so much to unpack. but I have to respect the time. And I want to honor each one of you by thanking you with my Vuvuzela blast, because I could not have done this alone, but with you. Thank you so much.
I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't. This is the first time I've ever sat on a panel and a live podcast. So thank you. And I wasn't even nervous. Thank you for
No,
bringing that out of me. And I really am. I'm so happy I've met two new friends. I've
Yes,
had two new BFFs now. Hey, who knew?
you were
yes,
stunning.
yes,
Every one of
yes.
you brought in so
Thank
much,
you.
and
Thank you so much.
it's a conversation. It's a fireside conversation. We're trying to reenact a
Yeah.
village setting in Africa where we're sitting around a fireside and just talking
Mm,
about
Yeah.
family,
I
because
love it.
there's
I love
Water
it.
somebody.
cooler. Love it.
Somebody's
Love
going to
it. Let's
benefit
do
from
it
this.
again. Yeah.
Mm,
Somebody's going to benefit from this. I guarantee you, I've learned so much. I'm sure some of
yes,
the people that are following this channel would benefit from
mm,
this. And the comments would speak for themselves. When they start to
yes,
say, can I reach out to this person? Then I'll come back to
mm,
you. But thank
mm,
you so
mm.
much for finding the time. Have
Well,
a
next
blessed
time I'll
evening.
bring the wood, Reverend. You bring the fire, and man,
Yes,
we just
Let me.
have,
that's
What am I
right.
supposed to bring?
we can
Let me
light the
hear.
whole village on fire if we're not careful.
There you go.
Right. I love
Let's
it.
get this going. Let's light
I
it up.
love it.
Let's
I
light
I,
it up.
I yes, let's keep it going.
Let's keep it
I'm sure
going.
we.
And
I've also learned so
Yes.
much
Oh,
from
yeah.
from the Rev and Dr. Really, and I feel like I'm part of your families already. Just listening
Yes.
to you
same.
Thank
talk.
you.
So
Thank you.
thank you
And
so
thank
much.
you,
I
Dr.
look forward
Gideon,
to
for
more.
yeah,
Yes,
thank you all.
putting this
we'll,
together.
my
with your,
brother.
we'll make
Love
it
you.
happen again. Thank you so
Yes,
much,
All
Mama. Thank you
right.
so much, everyone. Have a
yes.
great evening.
Send me the link so we can see the comments. Okay.
Okay, we'll do
Bye
so.
bye. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.